Welcome, everybody. Welcome to a Saturday morning version of Friday night photography presentations. Let's see if I can stop my screen here. There we go. There we go. We have a lot of folks have joined us. Welcome. And we have folks from the US, we have folks from Italy, possibly other parts of Europe. And my name is Nick DePasquale, and for all of those folks that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I live in the Northeast in New England and Massachusetts in the United States, and I'm a photography instructor. And today we have a great presentation with a very good friend of mine and fellow photographer and musician, Filippo Drudi. So Filippo is an extremely talented Italian photographer and artist. He currently lives in Rimini, Italy, which is on the Adriatic coast in Emilia-Romagna. Did I say that right, Filippo?
Yes, you did.
Hey, good. Northern region of Italy. He studied classical music composition at the Conservatory in Italy, and also worked as a freelance web and graphic designer before devoting himself totally to photography. Like many of us, he started out as a self-taught photographer, and later he began to take online classes, and that's where he met his mentor and my mentor, Joe Barabin. And he took Joe's Stretching Your Frame of Mind classes online and is now in a mentorship program with Joe, developing his portfolio for presentation in Italy. Today, you'll have the pleasure to see some of that work and some of the production back-end stuff on how we create those photographs. Filippo and I first met in 2016 during one of Joe's workshops, which happened to be in Sicily. And for the first dinner, Filippo and I ended sitting next to each other. We had a great conversation, discovered that we not only had photography interests in common, we also have guitar interests. And he turns out he plays Fender Stratocaster guitar as I do, and he plays in a local Italian band, and I play in a local Italian, not Italian band, a local band here, and he's a very good guitar player too. So I really a heartfelt welcome to Filippo, and it's really a treat that he's going to be able to share his work with us. During the presentation, if you have any questions whatsoever, please put them in the chat. I'll watch the chat and make sure that the questions get asked and answered. May interrupt Filippo at that point if it's appropriate, or if it's not appropriate, we'll wait to another spot in the presentation to answer the questions. So with that said, welcome Filippo, and thank you very much for putting together the presentation. That really takes a lot of time and effort, and we really appreciate that work, and also for sharing, your inspiration with us.
Well, thank you, Nick, for having me here, and thank you to everybody who's here watching, and welcome. So my name is Filippo Drudi. I'm a photographer from Italy, and today we're gonna look at how I do what I do, which is making pictures. So I want to share my screen now.
Yeah, actually, I need to let you share the screen. There you go. And I'm going to kill my video and put myself on mute, and I'll see you later.
Okay. So, okay. Okay. Can you all see?
Yes, you can see it fine. Did you want to leave your video on, or are you going to take it off?
You can take it off.
Okay.
Okay, so for the past year, I've been working on a project called The Fork. And basically, I'm taking pictures of this simple object we all have in our homes, used to heat, and that's a fork. And whenever I talk about to someone new about my project, I'm saying I'm taking pictures of forks. I mean, it doesn't sound really cool. It sounds pretty boring, actually. So I'm going to show you the pictures first to give you an idea. Okay. Okay, so what do you think now? I mean, uh, obviously it sounds pretty dull, but when you put your mind to it, I mean, you can do pretty amazing things even with a regular object like a fork. So one of the questions I get asked the most is how I got started with it. And I want to show you the first day I wasn't actually working on this project. It was a day in 2017, and I was up early in the morning, and I noticed the light coming from the window in the kitchen. And I usually am not up at the hour to see that. So I just noticed the light, and I grabbed my camera and started shooting it. So I'm going to show you the first day, the pictures I took. And these are not good pictures. I mean, it's just to show you how beginnings of stuff is not always so impressive. I mean, it's pretty ordinary. So you can see I have a window over here. Can you see my pointer? Also, so
Yes, we can see it
okay.
fine. Yep.
Okay. And I was in the kitchen, so I grabbed a fork. I mean, it's not the first time I photographed a fork, but in this instance, it was probably the first object that caught my mind. And so I have my windows here. I'm backlighting it, and I'm just going to show you some of the pictures and working on it. I mean, trying different things. Now I have the light coming through a curtain, so the light is uneven now. But as you see, as I'm going on, I'm trying with a fork, with a knife, and trying all kinds of things. And now I probably open the curtain, so you have the light that is more, well, let's say powerful and even, and trying other things, spoon, forks, the whole family, so to say, other angles, and getting closer, cropping in. As you see, when I do this, I start to make the picture more graphic. I get all kind of shapes over here, and glasses. I mean, they probably were there. I just tried everything I had, and a glass, and why not put the two together? And so I'm trying to make it more graphic using the color and the shadows, and going on trying to work on it basically, and see what I can come up with. So I'm doing the same things again. This time I have a glass over here. It's a simple plastic glass which is blue, and but you know, when you see the picture here, you probably don't see that it's a glass. You just see a shape and the color, and the same you see over here. And going on, and this is where I stopped. I mean, there's no really great pictures here, but this is how, for me, it started. But you see, I have a question. I mean, I went back, and when I was prepping the presentation, and I looked at the pictures. I didn't remember exactly what I did, and I asked myself a question, which is what I was interested in. Was it the fork? I think the answer for me was the light and the shadow, maybe. Also maybe the fork, which I used quite a lot. But you see, I just happened to be in the kitchen. I shot everything I could find in the kitchen. And over the past weeks, I had my little session in the morning and shot a bunch of other things. I want to show you what. So plates, a mat, another picture with a plate and a fork. It's inside a plate, a dish, I mean. This is a piece of pasta and a glass, a colored glass. And when you put a colored glass and you see the shadow that comes out, it's pretty amazing. And if you want to see all the colors, you just put a piece of white paper, and I mean, it's pretty beautiful. And this here are two glasses and a knife. You see, I'm already getting closer and making the picture more graphic. But for each of the pictures I'm showing now, there are at least a dozen or more steps I took, obviously, before getting here. Okay, so as I was saying, here we have a knife and two glasses, which are the two colored things on the sides, and I just use them graphically, basically. Next.
Okay.
So this one, as I said before, is not a really good picture. It's just to try whatever things I had in the kitchen, just to show you what the kind of work I do to get to the good stuff. I mean, you see a good picture, you think, oh my God, it must be a genius. But I mean, just try a bunch of stuff, and eventually, when you find something good, you work on it. So next. And here we have glasses and small glass bottles. You can see the shadows. They're pretty interesting. Next. And here I have two glass bottles, which are the two things on the sides. And in the middle, I have a small coffee cup with a spoon inside and a sprinkle of coffee. I mean, another thing I tried. Next. Here we are two knives on a wood board, and the shadow in the middle is a cheese grater or bread grater. You see, I tried every object I could think of and make something out of it. Next.
We have a question for you, Filippo.
Yep.
It says, do you put the objects you photograph on paper or on a table?
On paper or on?
On a
What?
table. So these happen to be on the table, right?
Well, I'm on a table, but in this case, I have a chopping board for this one. For the white one, I have a piece of paper. Yes, the bigger the better. Usually, the one used to draw on for any kind of drawing. For instance, like here, two forks, glasses, a little bottle of oil, which is the yellow thing in the middle. Next. I'm sorry, Nick, I'm making you scroll a lot today.
No, it's okay. And actually, someone sent me on how to do a page at a time. So actually, I don't know how to set that up, but Jeff, if you can just text me on how you set that up, that'd be great. Okay.
Okay. And here I had two forks and a bottle in the middle. I mean, another idea to try. Next. I'm going fast here. I just want to show you all the things to try. I mean, some of the things to try.
So we have another question for you. Tom is asking, what's your typical light source in these test pictures so far?
So all these pictures are made with sunlight. This is the sunlight that's coming from the window we've seen before in the kitchen, and I'm on the kitchen table working and holding my camera because I try using a tripod, but you see the problem is the sun moves pretty fast actually. So I tend to spend a lot of time on these pictures, so I want to maybe get an object or a shadow or something in a particular place, and the sun just keep moving. So I can never work fast enough with a tripod, also because I'm working on a table, and it's kind of difficult to, get above the table with the camera, even if you can put the shaft of the center shaft of the tripod horizontally. So I'm just hand holding my camera, and this is a chopping board with the shadow of the little oil cruet. And next. Oh, great. So
Yeah.
here I have a knife, and you see, I was just interested in the shadow of the knife. It looks like, one of those big statues in the Easter Island. For me, I just put a little bit of salt on the side, just an idea. Trying. Next.
Yep, let me get over there.
Oh, no
Yep,
worries.
no, it's I'm doing two things here.
Okay, so here I have the red thing is a glass. To be exact, is the shadow of a glass. Depends on how the on how the glass is made. Actually, that makes all the different forms inside the shadow, and the fork and a knife on the sides and some sword. I mean, you can see it's not really a project here, just trying stuff. Next. And this one, just a little jug and a cap, trying something simpler. And next. And these are from the last day. I shot for about a few weeks, almost this morning, and anything look familiar? I mean, the one on the left, it's the same I took on the first day. This one I did it on a white background, which is a piece of paper, and another idea on the right. So after 2 or 3 weeks of doing this, I stopped because I just couldn't come up with anything more, any more idea. I just got a little bit bored. But I thought this could be, you know, an idea for something in the future. And yeah, as I said before, for each of these pictures, obviously there are a dozen or more attempts or steps or tries. Even because, you know, as I'm hand shooting and holding my camera, it's difficult to get it exactly as you want because you're looking at different things all at once and trying the composition, trying the idea of the photograph. So sometimes you have to you just move it's a little crooked or whatever. So 3 years later, I was going over my portfolio with Joe Barba, and we did a pretty merciless selection of the pictures, and a few of those survived. So next. Okay, this is one of them. Again, looks familiar. It's one of the things to try, but instead of having a plain background here, instead of having a plain background here, I have 3 bottles, glass bottles, which makes these shadows or design in the background. And I tried this. I mean, I must have 3 or 4 versions of this. And I don't mean 3 or 4 pictures. I mean 3 or 4 times I tried to make this picture with 3 or 4 stripes and more. Next.
Filippo, we have a question for you. And how do you position your utensils? Are they like, for example, in this picture, is the fork just balanced on its own, or do you hold it somehow, or how do you keep them stationary?
The fork here is just laying on the side on the table. I mean, nothing fancier. And even for the other one, I mean, I just lay it down or put it in a position where it can stand or just stay where I want it. Nothing fancy.
Great. And actually, someone else asked about the settings. And actually, if you notice that on some of these pictures on the finals, he's actually included the settings
Yes,
down
I
the
did. I
bottom.
mean, for the final pictures, I included the settings below the photographs. I figured someone could be interested in it, and you can see I have 2 focals. The first one is the actual one from the camera, and the second one is the one in 35 millimeters. This is because on some of the pictures I'm using a crop sensor camera. So I mean, if I shoot at 36, for instance, it would be like a 54 in 35 millimeters. My typical settings are, well, it depends on the picture. I mean, it depends what I want on the light, whatever. If I don't look for anything particular, I just put my aperture at 8 or 11 and start with that. So next. Okay, this is another one. As you see, I have the fork laying on the side and its shadow. And the blue thing on the left is, as you can guess, the shadow of a glass. And the glass is just laying on the side. And the curve in the bottom part, and yeah, that one is just the handle of a mug, which is probably laying on the side, or maybe not. I really don't remember, maybe not. And the one on the top is, I think, a glass bottle. I mean, I just tried and put things together. And when I found something that I liked, I worked on the picture until I could come up with something, interesting and possibly good. So next, okay. So this one is one of the three that survived the selection. And do you want to see how it's made? Nick, go to the next page. Okay, so here we have a production shot, actually two, and they're not shot the same day. As you can see, the sheet of paper on the bottom is bigger. But I have a glass bowl in the center, which is the sort of greenish color, yes, and a red glass inside it. So if you look at the bottom, the glass bowl is what makes the yellow, the white beside the fork in the picture, as you can see below. And the red is coming from the glass, and the two parts of blue on the side are made by the two blue glasses. And you can show the picture again if you want. Okay, so you see we have the red in the middle, the white is coming from the ball, and the blue on the sides, which is not much, from the glasses. And the fork here is resting on the ball, because obviously it's not touching. And also you can get the shadows from the prongs below. Yeah, this is Stefan's favorite. And you can see there's a little bit of white in the fork in the bottom part, and that is just the reflection from the piece of paper where the shadow stops. Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty simple setup, really nothing fancy, but as you probably guessed, I've tried whatever I could think of. And eventually something good comes up. And I tried this photograph probably several times. Well, not probably, for sure. And many pictures each time. And eventually you get a winner. So let's go ahead. Next, and so as I said before, we were looking at my portfolio and said these three pictures. And since I had a lot of folks, according to Joe, he suggested I do a project about them. So we were in like December or maybe January. And I confess I was a little skeptical at first, but open to the idea. And then COVID came. So here we are in 2020, and we have a new challenge ahead of us. And we see now that, opportunities for shooting are everywhere. So next. So this is one of the first pictures I did in 2020. And I was looking now to expand on the theme of the fork. And you see I have a fork standing here and a background. And Nick, go next image. Okay, this is the production shot of this picture. I'm sorry for the quality. It's just shot with my terrible smartphone, and it was not meant to be displayed, if not to a few friends. And so I have my camera on tripod here. The fork is standing. I'm using a little peg, which is taped to the bottom, which is a shoebox. And inside the shoebox, I have my phone with the torch on and a blue gel on it. A simple blue gel, the one you use on a flash, on a speed light. And the diffusion on the background is just a piece of, yeah, that's another thing. That's the main light. But that's the light that is lighting the fork, and it's a torch that is fixed to this gooseneck lamp with a couple of elastic bands, and it has an orange gel. But I was talking about the background. It's just a sheet of non-stick paper, the one you use in the oven, and it just, to me, it's just as good as tracing paper, for example. Then the problem with that is, as the name implies, it's really difficult to make it stick tape on it. So you have to be creative to make it stay where you want. And next, if you didn't get it before, I'm working in a bathroom because I'm sharing a small studio apartment with my girlfriend. And in this instance, I'm using not natural light or sunlight, but these artificial lights, which are, as I said before, just torch. And before my cell phone here, I had the lamp I used before and the torch. As you can see, my equipment is very professional, really expensive. And so I'm working in the bathroom because I need to shut the light, and obviously she needs to do other things. And here I have a shoebox. It's the same one I had before. And you can see there's a little yellow peg in the bottom that is functioning as my stand for the fork. And I've just taped it with some gaffer tape because I didn't want to hit my camera accidentally, which could obviously happen. And I have 3 lights here. I'm going to show you the picture first, then we'll go back. Go to the next picture. Okay, this is the picture. As you see, I have 3 colors here. I have green on the left, and go back, Nick. Okay, so I have green on the left that is coming from the little torch on the left, exactly. And then I have the right next. The red that is coming from the right, and that one exactly, it's just a lamp with a red gel. And I have another light in front of the camera in the bottom, which is a really small bicycle light, bicycle tail light with the blue gel, which is making the blue reflection. And next, and the big part of the red that is lighting the fork, that if you look at it, it comes from the left. It's just a little piece of white paper used as a reflector. Go back, Nick. If you look at the bottom photograph in the left part on the camera, there's a little bit of piece of white. Yeah, it's just one of my photographs on the back, and I just use it as a whiteboard, as a reflector, and that is what is lighting the most of the fork. And the 2 lights are working as well as kicks or hair lights. So next. And next. Okay, so this is another production shot. You don't see the camera here because I taken it out, but it's obviously where you see the tripod. And I have a small coffee table with the top in glass because I can use light below it. And on top of the table, I have a piece of glass, which would be like a whiteboard, but it's made of glass and it's satin. And I use that because it makes less reflections respect to regular glass. I have the fork lying really close to the camera, and below you can see some books. You can see the lamp I used before, which is laying on the side because, well, obviously I need it low. And when you see the reddish piece of cloth in the back, that one, yeah, it's a scarf, and it's working as a gel for a bigger lamp, which is a simple desk lamp. But you can see my gels in the floor here and not really big. So to gel a regular light bulb, I need to be creative. And the books, which are standing below the forks, are just working as well as, you know, as flags between the lights. And I have 3 lights here. I have one in the front, which is not in position, but you can see next to the tripod. Yeah, that goes next to the first book. And in the middle, there's the second light, which is the one with the, yeah, the one. And in the back, I have a third light, exactly, which is my rhythm. Well, it's actually hidden underneath the cloth. So let's look at the picture now. Next. This is the picture I did. I just see there's a really big gap between the production shot and the final picture. I mean, this looks pretty neat, right? While you can see the gear I use really isn't. But you see, I mean, a keypad is never a limit to creativity. If you know what it does and you can use it the way you want to do, what you want, I mean, you can do pretty amazing stuff. So here you can see 3 colors, and one is coming from the first light, which is a torch with a blue light. The one in the middle has like a magentish kind of color, and the one in the back is more reddish. And I tried several colors. I tried even several backgrounds. As I said before, I'm using here a piece of glass satin because it's pretty smooth. It gets me pretty smooth color and transitions, and I don't get as much reflection of the fork that I would get otherwise. And if I use a piece of paper, for instance, I would get the texture of the paper. I don't know if you ever tried to backlit a piece of paper and really focus on it, but I mean, paper is made of fibers, and you can see them when you light them. So also here we have the fork that looks pretty different from how we see it, because I'm really close. I'm working with, as you can see below, a 15 mils, which is would be a 23, and I'm using my mirrorless camera because it's smaller and it gets me. I mean, I can use a 15 millimeters and get a little bit more of depth of field than I would if I used just a regular 24 on a full frame camera. And also being smaller usually gets me to focus closer. And you know, often people ask me about post-production or Photoshop and for the photographs, and I don't really like to mess around with that a lot. The only thing I do is usually to take care of some details that maybe I couldn't get exactly as I want in the camera, or as you've seen, I don't have, you know, color balanced light, so I often need to tweak the color a little bit to what I want them. And for instance, here, the only thing I did was to sharpen the tip of the fork, because I was so close, I just couldn't get it all in focus. And I tried my best compromise, To be honest, I sent the picture to Joe, and he replied to say, well, the tips are not in focus. So I just didn't know how to do it, and eventually I find, a solution. I just use sharpness is all about the transition between colors. Or, for instance, in the tip we have black, and then we have blue in the background. And if the transition is really sharp and really abrupt, the image is going to look sharp. But if we have like a gradient, it's going to look soft. So I just work with the clone tool, this stamp tool, and worked on the background and on the inside the fork until I just took care of the transition on the tips. And yeah, it's a little bit tedious, but
We have a question for you, actually from Joe. Do you ever use a polarizing filter to control reflections?
I tried to use it once, and I tried to use it when I thought I could have some effect, but for these pictures, I don't think I have used one. No, I tried it, but it never did the trick.
Great. Actually, I want to just point something out to folks. When Filippo talks about flash gels, these are them on the floor. So they're actually pretty inexpensive. They're the colored plastic that goes on the face of the flash, and you can get them online for fairly cheap. And there's lots of different range of colors. So that's when he talks about gels, that's what he's talking about. These little guys sitting on the
Exactly.
floor.
Yeah, they come in the little pouch you see on the floor, the one with the blue border.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, you just get a set of those. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, this is another one. And again, the picture quality is not great, but it was taken just for fun. I mean, you see why it's important to read, right?
Yeah. This is way sophisticated, too sophisticated for me, the equipment.
So I'm going to explain to you what's going on here. So I have my camera, the tripod, and I have the lens extended all the way, which is 28 to 300. And you can see, as you can probably see, I have a snapshot tube in between the body, the camera, and the lens. And I think it's a pretty big one. It should be like the 36, I'm not sure. And, think about it. If you take out the books, all the weight of the lens, and the lens is pretty heavy, as heavy as the body of the camera. Well, for one, it makes the camera lean forward or down. And also it puts an awful lot of stress on the joints, on where the camera, attaches to the lens. So you could use a lens collar, but I just couldn't find one that fits all, or for the specific model. So I just figured I'd make my own stand to have the camera and the lens bear the weight. And that's the reason the books are there. Just also, the camera's not going to move now. It's a lot easier to frame and to compose the image. So beside that, we have two piles of boxes, and there's a gap in between. The reason is because I have a light, as you can see now, but there's a light inside. On top of the boxes, I have two books, and just to get a little higher, and a piece of paper which is taped so it's flat and doesn't move, and it's also curved on the background because I want to make a seamless background. And I have the fork laying on top. Okay, so go next. These are two art production shots. This was before, because I did the shot I'm going to show you in a moment a couple of times. And you can see the setup is a little bit more well, less sophisticated, let's put it that way. And above the piece of paper, which is functioning as the background, I have two plastic PVC tubes. Yeah, right. And I have a homemade softbox, which is that stuff over there. Yes, with a torch inside and a blue gel. So I have a light below, which should look like red, but I mean, it's just blown out. And I have a blue light above. And you can see on the right, which is, yeah, the complete setup with the lights off, more or less. Okay, so go next. Let's see look at the picture. Okay, this is the picture. Okay, so I have the red that is coming from below. And you see, you probably noticed the background was curved in the front. I had some pegs or some weight to make it curve, because I'm standing with the camera and I want to feel the bottom part of the screen that I wouldn't, otherwise I wouldn't get. And the blue instead is coming from above. And yeah, this is like almost a macro shot, because I'm really close. But I'm actually pretty far from the fork now, because you see, when you have an extension tube, your depth of field is going to be pretty shallow, and you think the fork is not really big, so it's not going to be an issue. But I mean, when you think about macro photography, you have to think like bug size, not fork size. So fork's like pretty fucking use. So you have to have 5 or 6 centimeters, which should be a few inches for depth of field, which is a lot. And the problem here is to have everything in focus. And this was kind of a big problem, because optically I just couldn't get it. So eventually what I did, I just went to the internet, did a bunch of research, and figured out what kind of focal I need and what kind of focusing distance I needed to get the most of the depth of field. And I was actually in the distance pretty far. Well, not that far, but not as close as the other ones. And I had to crop the picture later to make it bigger and sharpen all the fork, which is really, really, really a pain. Yeah, but you see, you have to find a solution for the problem you have at hand. And for instance, this is the only one I had at the moment. Now, with the pictures I did later, I would have tried focus stacking the picture, which is to take pictures at various focal points and then put them in together with the software. I actually tried it, but it didn't work for this picture. And so eventually I just had to do it as I did before in the other photograph, sharpening all the borders, because otherwise it was sort of in focus, but the quality just wasn't good enough. So, and you see, if you look at the data below, I'm shooting f/36. So, next.
We have a couple questions for you. The first question is from Mickey. She wants to know what type of books are these that have so many darn pages in them? And did you actually read them?
You know, there's my sister in the audience, and those are her books. So I can put it in touch with her. She can tell you. I just don't remember.
Stephanie has a question, and this is actually a discussion that you and I had. And her question is, do you visualize the final image when you begin your setup?
So this is an interesting question. For instance, for this picture,
or just maybe pictures in general. Yeah.
Well, for this one, when I tried working on this idea and messing around, I had a picture in my head in and down in, I think, 15 minutes, for instance. And then it took me, I don't know, probably several hours for the first session, and I probably did it again another day, and then I did the picture again after several months, and it took me a few tries. So I don't know how many hours, but I think it's probably a day worth or 2 hours. So when I start, I'm just exploding with my camera, with my eyes. It's still focusing for a ridiculous amount of time. And sometimes, like for instance, I find a picture and, it's a little bit hard to explain it, but for me, I never really see the picture visually in my mind. It's like I have a blindfold on my eyes, but I have my hands and I can touch the picture. So eventually, when I'm trying stuff with the camera, with the objects, I'm trying stuff, and if it feels like the one I can feel in my head, I know I'm on the right path. Yeah, does it answer your question?
So it's sort of like you take a path, you start going down the path, you're not exactly sure where that path's going to lead, but then at some point it just kind of explodes into your mind as to what it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I have a like non-visual image I try to follow, or sometimes I stumble on the picture. I mean, it depends. It's never the same. But the process, it's really the process is usually pretty similar, because it starts with me exploring whatever I can think of. Sometimes with the camera, sometimes I just look with my eyes. It depends.
We have another question. Do you use a remote trigger?
Well, for instance, you saw a remote trigger on the camera before. You're really sharp, but it was just to trigger in the shutter, for instance, because I usually use a remote cable, but it was broken, so I tried the closest solution I had, which is the remote trigger and the little cable that goes into the camera, and I use that to trigger the picture. Yeah, but usually I use just yeah, that one on the right. It's just to shoot the picture because I don't want any movement, and with my reflex here, since I have the option, I shoot in mirror lockup mode. So I click once to close the mirror, and twice, and the second one to shoot the picture. Okay, so now we have a look at my fantastic gear. So this is my gels above. It's 2 blocks. The one on the left is just the colored ones, and the one on the right supposed to be correction one. And 3 flashlights, although when I started, I only had the middle one. The big one I bought a little bit later, and the small one really recently. I just used it once. And I have a couple of flashes here, but I use them all twice. I don't really. I prefer to use continuous lights because I'm shooting. I want to have a really precise outcome and really precise shadow. I need to work on it, and just flashing, just too tedious. And also, the flashlights are smaller, and so they're going to make harder shadows, more defined shadows than I would get with the flash. Next. And here I have another light, which you've seen before. It's a simple, pretty light. It's been kind of usurpated from my girlfriend, courtesy of. Next, desk lamp, regular bulb inside. Next. And this is one of my homemade softbox. I don't have the diffusion screen on right now, but it's made of cardboard, as you can see, and it's made so I can fit a torch inside the top part, which is made with the the inside of a toilet paper roll. That one, yeah, you can see, yeah, there's a torch inside. And next, this is a bigger one, or well, not actually that much bigger, but this is the one I use with my black desk lamp I showed before. I just get rid of the. Can you go back, Nick? A couple of. Okay, I just take off the hood and use the bare bulb and put it inside. Go ahead. Okay, inside the hole there. Yeah, there's a wire. It's a bit of a metal wire because I needed to, have the light above my subject, so I need something to, to take to fix it. Well, to fix it to hang it to the lamp. Next, and this is all the stuff I collected doing the pictures, the forks. When I started, I didn't have any of those. I began with you can see in the middle, the white paper to drawing paper, yeah, origami paper, which is the colored one, and then tracing paper, black paper, a little piece of cardboard on the right, and cutouts. This is the one with origami paper, yeah, smaller. Next, and obviously the king, the solution to all my problems, or almost, tape, in two forms, gaffer tapes and masking tape for the delicate surfaces. Next, and obviously my forks. I mean, when I started, I had just 6 of them, which were the one we had in the house where we were living, and it so happened they were all different. Now I've collected several ones, all stolen, all borrowed, several ones. And the black thing is a homemade stand, just a piece of foam with some gaffer tape around. Next. Okay, so how do you do this? I mean, I made a screenshot several of my pictures. So I think the answer in one word is practice. If you want to get more in depth, the quality of the photograph you only get if you really work, and it's really a matter of putting the time and effort. And sorry, I'm gonna go back to my notes. Yeah, and you have to keep in mind there are no excuses. I mean, when you're making a picture, you must own every little bit of it, every little pixel of the picture. Sometimes you get stuff that you didn't want. I mean, that you didn't plan on having on it, on the picture. I mean, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes stuff you don't like. But the moment you see it, you notice it. You have to decide if you want. You have to decide if it works or if it doesn't. So in the end, you have the power. It's all in your hand. So you own 100% of the photograph. And I happened to watch a video some times ago. It was like a conversation with a photographer named Taylor Shield, if I remember correctly, and he said, "What if you were paid $1 million for the picture? Would you do anything differently?" And if your answer is yes, then you have to go and do what you think is necessary. So this is my philosophy behind the work I do. Also, I mean, there's the question of creativity. I mean, a lot of people tell me, yes, but I mean, you must be really creative. You must have like an amazing imagination. And this is what we're going to talk about next: creativity and imagination.
So a
So
couple
next,
a couple of comments and a
right?
question. So first off, Joe kind of wants to reemphasize that it's not about the gear, it's not about the equipment, it's about the 10 inches behind the camera, which is very important in making pictures, not just taking pictures. So there was a question here about the type of light bulb. So versus regular incandescent lighting or LED lighting, have you seen any differences between the type of light bulbs that you use?
You know, right now I just don't have the luxury to be picky about it. I just use what I have. So most of it, I think it's some of it is LED, some of it is fluorescent, some of it might be incandescent. I mean, the flashlights are LEDs. Uh, the main thing is the torch is usually going to get you a much cooler light, and we're going to see something about it later. And the regular bulbs are going to give you usually a warmer light. But once you are aware of that, you just make your own decision and decide what light you need, or if you have to gel it, if you have to change your white balance. Mm, as I said, I'm really not picky at the moment. I just use what I have and find a solution to do what I want. Any other questions?
It looks like we are good right now.
Okay, so let's go ahead. So, talking about imagination and creativity, let me show you another project I did a few years ago. And I'm going to show you, as I did before, some of the pictures I did in the period where I shot this project. So, next. So, for instance, I think it was winter, or I was confined in the house, at home, and I probably was bored. I mean, but being bored, being confined at home, because sometimes you just don't want to go out. It's okay. You can find something to do, even if you're stuck in the room. And you see, I have, for instance, I've just taken an apple and used the light, probably a flashlight, looking at the shadow, which is pretty defined, and made a shadow. Go next. So, working from that, these are two of the pictures I could come up with. I mean, if you look at the one on the left, you see it's pretty similar to the one before. I've only had a few things to make it funnier. It's not like a great picture, but I mean, it gets a laugh sometimes. And on the right, I just thought, what I mean, the shape to me looked like a face in a way. And I thought, what if I grab a bite of the apple and make it the apple and make a mouth for my shape. So it looks simple to do, but in the end, I actually had to cut the apple in half, because otherwise the other half gets in the way of the light. Because you see, the light is above, and well, looking at the photograph below, higher. So the shadow, the form of the apple is distorted. It's obviously longer, uh, like an oval, while the apple's more like round. And to make the little hole that looks like should be like the eye, it was really difficult. Yeah, because you have to make a hole that's uh, obliquous. That's oblique. I mean, just in the direction where the light is coming from. But these are just two examples. Next. So another thing I tried, um, I don't know if you ever heard, if you have it, there's like a saying that says that a pen can be mightier than a sword. And I was just messing around with pens and pencils, and I just tried to make a picture that could, you know, put the two together. And I used it's actually a pencil with a clip, which is making a shadow that looks like, to me it looked like a sword, but I can see obviously it looks like a cross also. So but I mean, one of the things they tried, I mean, there are several pixels on each one of those. On the right, I was just messing around with a pair of scissors, and I was really intrigued by the shadow. I like to backlight a lot, and I thought, what could I do to give some context to the shadow? I mean, what if, for instance, I just cropped the legs, if you can call it that, of the scissor and focused on the shadow and imagined like it was some sort of being, like I don't know, an evil being, maybe a creator. And so, what could I put inside the picture to add something? And the idea I had was to cut out this little man and compose a picture. Eventually, I selected a proper background, which is a the how would you call it? Well, I just can get the word right now, but it doesn't matter to make to give some color to the photograph. Next. So on the left we have a number here. Just the first one I have a shot, and this is number 10, and it's made by an eraser, a roller tape, and a pencil put on a simple. It was actually a dictionary. Yeah, the background. So by now, I'm still trying several stuff, as you can see from the picture on the right, which is not as good, but I try to make a face with 2 rolls of tapes and some pencils and a sharpener next. And here I'm using a measuring tape, the one the tailors use. And these are 2 experiments. I stumbled upon something that looked like a number 9, and I already had a 10, so I probably figure, why not? Next. And this is the first picture that actually ended in the series. This is number 9. I did really a lot of version of this one until I found the one that looked best. The background is just a photography book, actually. Next. So you see, I have 2 numbers already. Maybe I could take the hint and maybe work on that, but no, I'm working on every kind of stuff. I'm making like these figurines out of shadows and stuff from the sewing kit, measuring tape, button, thread. Next. And I also worked with coins and had an idea to make a number 8, for instance, and this could be one of the picture. Next. And so by now I have several numbers. I mean, not that many, but I can see something. I mean, I could see I could work on that, and so I put my mind to it. And one idea I had for number 1 was I found this box with domino pieces and tried and worked with those. These are 2 shots just to show you the work in progress. And next, this is my final image. If you can go back just a second to show, you see, if I and next. And if I am in the right position, I mean, all you see here are domino pieces and shadows. But when you look at the picture, what do you see? I mean, I see a number 1, and it's pretty damn evident. And right now I'm using just a piece of paper as a background, because you see the shadow is black, the pieces are black, and I think even the dots on the pieces are white. It's like a black and white here, even if the picture is actually in color. And the light source here is just a simple flashlight, the middle one, inside that you've seen before. And it's just attached to my desk lamp, so I could position it and let it be while I work with my camera. I'm obviously on a tripod here. Next. So you see, I'm trying really everything I can think of. This is a very uninspired attempt at number 6. Next. And this is number 4. And it was actually pretty easy to make this one, or what to think this one. I just draw a 4 on a notebook, and just thought, what do I have to do to make the shadows be like that? And I don't know why, but toothpicks came to mind. And then I have to figure out how to, or where to put them to be, inclined. And a cork board was a solution. So next, this is, I don't know, when I saw this, I thought about a number 8, but I think it was probably an attempt at a number 3. If you look at the shadows, at the black, that's not really great one. Next. Here we have a production shot of my first attempt, number 7. What you see here are Cuisinart rods, or numbers in color. They're used to, to learn numbers and to count for kids. And I found the box from my childhood and played with that. And you probably have, I don't know if you can figure out where the shadow is coming from. But you see, Nika, I don't know if you can point them to. There's a little orange in the bottom that's really tall, that's making the long shadow, right? Then I have the small one, which is making the other bit. And the 2 horizontal one are made, well, one with a green, one with orange. Okay, let's do the green one first. The green one, which is laying above the background. And the same is for the blue one at the top. Next. So you see, I've tried that. I always try other versions. I just want to see if what I have is actually, the best solution to my problem, or the best picture I can make. So I made different version with simpler background. And if we try go to the next image, I can't remember which one's that. Okay, this is the final one actually. So have a look at the background here, and go back and have a look at the background in the other 2. I mean, these are graphic, neat in a way, but okay. If you look at the background here, you have a lot of stuff going on. You have context, you have a lot of color or shape, and I was having a conversation actually with Joe some time ago, not quite recently, and we were talking about black background and against another kind of background. And what he said was that the black background, it's like an easy solution, because you just don't have anything there. you have to put a lot more time and effort to make also the background an important part of the picture. And this is just one of the examples to prove that. I mean, next.
We have a quick question
Yeah.
from Jeff. Was the shadow crossing the 7 spot of the number block intentional? So right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then the 8, 9, 10. So was this intentional right here?
That's a good question that I really can't answer because I don't remember, honestly. Maybe it was. I should probably say yes. Isn't it? But it was intentional that I put the orange rod with the 10 number because I was going to do a series of 10. By now I knew.
Yeah. So there was 2. Yeah. So Bridget, yeah, this is the European 7, but we're talking about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here, right? 8, 9.
So all my numbers are made with a single flashlight as the light source. And there is no post-production except for what I do here is just to control the fallout of the light. And I do that in Lightroom with some gradients. I find that it works better than using simple whiteboards when you shoot the picture, because it allows me to be more precise. And if I want to work only on the background part and not on the shadow, because it's really easy to lighten the shadow if you use a reflection board, a whiteboard, when you shoot the picture. I mean, I want my shadows here pretty contrasty and dark and precise. So my solution was to take care of the fallout in post-production. Yeah. Next. So now we have a number 3. I probably tried, working with cards. I figured I could just bend them and make like 2 bridges. And then I worked on the background and I tried using the same cards to make the background, but it just didn't work perfectly to me. Next. So eventually this is the final shot, the one I kept. I figured the black and white and red and the simple design of this kind of cards worked better. And the numbers just stand out more. Next. So here I'm working on a number. Anyone can guess which one? Nick, can you?
No.
No. So you see, I'm actually working on a 2 here.
Ah, yeah, Joe got it. Joe Delgadio guessed the 2.
Okay.
Yeah, now I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clearly not a successful attempt. But you see, I'm using the shadow, but I'm also manipulating the shadow, because we don't have to think about the surface where the shadow falls, because we usually think about the shadow falling on a flat surface, right? But if you actually take a straight object like a pencil and make the shadow go like on the angle of a box, you're going to get not a straight line, but a different kind of shadow. Or on a curved surface, it's going to look curved. And we're going to see it in a moment. Next. So this is another attempt at number 2. I just tried, going around with my flashlight. Notice the handle on this door, and I had part of the 2. And then I had to figure out a way to make the bottom part, which is a screwdriver. Next. So this is number 8. So it's pretty simple in a way to do, because you only need 2 round objects. But the challenge is to make the picture interesting. So I found those 2 round objects, let's call it that. And then I had my height, but then I have to figure out a way to make the background look relevant and to make it look interesting. And eventually I just found this bag of bolts and nuts, and I figured, why don't I make a bed with those? And I just took a piece of wood and taped it and put all the bolts and made a bed, and then put the two round objects above it and set my light and took a picture. I mean, after that was pretty easy. Next. So the 5 was one of the more challenging numbers to do because it's pretty complex as a shape. I mean, we have a curved part, a straight part, another straight part. So it took a lot of experimenting, and eventually I found this lock and this key with a tag, and put it in a way that I could get actually a 5, a pretty good one. But you see, the problem I have here, the reason I'm showing in 2 pixels, and I'm going to show you more, is the background again. I mean, the first one, the 5 is not great. The second one is really good, but the blue works. But what the problem I have with this is I have no context. I have no environment in a way in the background. So let's go to the next picture. So as you see, I didn't solve the problem, but I'm showing you the pictures as in the order I shot them. Here I'm also working on number 6, and as I was saying before, if you look at the picture on the left, I have a regular pencil. Okay, but if you look at the shadow just curves. So why is that? The reason is because the background, the piece of paper with the color, is not laying flat, but actually on my waste bin, which is round, put it on the side. So my shadow is gonna be curved now, and the round part of the 6 is made by the ribbon on the left. While on the right, I have a pair of scissors. I'm using the same technique as before. As you can see now, the lines in this core are curved, which is because the page is curved, so I could get a 6-ish figure next. And these are all experiments, and you can see on the left what we talk about now with the pencil, which is curving, and you can see in the staffs of this core the background is curving as well. And then finally we get to a more interesting picture. I'm actually using only the ribbon. The ribbon, the top part is actually curved, but the background is still curved because it's going to curve the shape more. Otherwise, it wouldn't look right. And for instance, here, since I had a ribbon, I just figured, why not use some wrapping paper for Christmas next. So this is my final shot. The red one, I think it was pretty good, but I mean, all the red and the green and the shapes in the trees, it was pretty strong, it was like challenging my number, which was supposed to be the main subject. And here with the blue and the simple design of the paper, I think I got a better shot of having my number come across. So next. So as I said before, I still wasn't satisfied with my 5, so I tried putting my key and lock on every surface I could find or could think of. So marble on the floor, on the tiles, next. And I couldn't find a solution yet because I'm working now at another number here. I don't know if you can guess which one is it.
Yeah, I can see this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's a 2,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so next. And here, I think I'm on the right path with the handle of the cup. So I'm working it. And I have my setup here with a napkin, I think is the background. And I have a cup, which is making the top part of the 2. And as before, I had the problem to make the bottom part of the 2. So, but you see, now I'm trying to compose a picture that is interesting and not, but not competing with my number. Next. And I tried really a lot of things. And this was the picture I chose at the end. The spoon has no function here. It's just to separate the shadow of the 2 with the other part of the shadow to make it stand out more. And I used a vanilla pot to do the bottom because it was black. It was like, yeah, you could notice it less, but you see better the number. Next. So you see other tries of the attempts at number 5. And I think the bottom one is not bad, but go ahead. Eventually I had 2, and this was my favorite, the one I picked. And it's just a worn tabletop, but you know, the warmth of the wood and the color, um, I think it just fits with the the feel of the key, which is worn as well, and the key and the lock. I mean, it could be, it's clearly a picture that has been thought, but you could find a lock and a key on a tabletop, right? So it looks, to me, it looks natural. It could be real in a way. Next. And so by now, I think I have all the numbers, but I won't do my 10 again because it was my first and I just want to do if I could do it better. So I'm trying a different way to do it, always with an eraser, a roller tape, and this time I'm using a wax pastel, and I just grabbed a piece of paper and colored in red for this attempt. Next. And for the final picture, I actually got a red piece of paper or cardboard. I used a new eraser, which is, it looks better than the other one. And since I wanted, I mean, I chose a red color to go with the green, and then I chose the blue to go with both. I think it could work. And I had this insane idea to write all the numbers from 11 to whatever number I could get to on the background, which was a really bad idea because my hand hurt for a lot and it took a lot of time. But I mean, it gives a little bit of color and interest to the background. So next, let's just see, I got my picture, but still I want to try stuff. And then I thought, why don't I tear the background in 6 and tape it together? And I tried it, and eventually I thought the other one was better. I just didn't need the extra work. So you see, I'm trying a lot of stuff here. I mean, and you see some of the pictures, but I'm also trying stuff with my mind and trying with my eyes. If I don't have a picture because I've already, in a way, tried it in my head. And the way I go about this is trusting my intuition. I mean, just follow my gut. And when I get a feeling I'm on the right track, I just work on it. and just try and try and try and try different perspective, and try to be there, really, really present, and so I can be open and get the good stuff. So my key line is trust your intuition and then do the work. Next. So back to my forks. So here we have a fork, and we talk about a little bit about the manipulation of the shadow, as you can see now. So I have a light on the side, pretty low, but the curve, the sharp curve in the middle top part is made by resting the fork on an open notebook. So I have two curves in a way. I don't know if you can point it out, Nick, with your cursor. Yeah, right in the middle. No, do you want? Okay, so okay, you see the fork here, right? So, well, also when I'm looking at this picture is obviously about color and shape, I think, mainly. But what do you see beside the fork, beside the shadow and the color? What I saw when I got this kind of shadow, to me, it looked like an ideogram, one they use in the Eastern culture. No? It's not one of those, but it looks like it to me. And now we're going to go and see more in depth this looking at stuff and seeing more of what you have in front of you. Some time ago, if you remember, Nick, you introduced me to a wonderful photographer named Edward Weston. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And you showed me the pepper photograph. And then I was really impressed with it, and I went to look at Hatt's work, and I find a quote in his Wikipedia page that said, "To photograph a rock, have it look like a rock, but be more than a rock." And this is really true for me. I mean, I look at the fork, I see the shadow, I see the color, I see the graphic stuff, but also my mind also is like see other stuff as well. So next, I'm going to show you now another project I did before, and we're going to go into this stuff that is really difficult to talk about. Next. So 2014, I usually went out every day to shoot. And for instance, this day it was overcast, so I figured I would just go out and practice on abstract. I grabbed my camera and lenses and extension tubes and tripod and try to, work on my composition and color and stuff, just exercises in a way. And here you can see I'm in the station. Well, you can't see, but I'm in the station. This is the passage to go from one track to another one. And you have this pipe. It's like a rain pipe. Yeah, it's really ruined. It's orange PVC pipe, which has been coated in white and then in this almost black color. But you see the color, do you see the color, do you see the shapes? It's interesting here, no? So I get my camera out, my tripod, and start working on this detail. Next. These are some of the pictures I did, some of the first pictures I did. I'm just trying for abstract here. I just want to work on shapes and color, whatever I can find, and see if I can compose a picture that's interesting. But the more I look at this stuff, eventually I start to see the shapes, I start to see figures. I start to see things like heads, animals, or if you look closely, you probably see something next. And these are other pictures. As you can see, I'm trying very different. I mean, the surface is the same and trying different compositions. different spots on the pipe next. And eventually I found this one. And this is where I stopped, because I saw some really clear figures here. I mean, it's like, you know, the Rorschach test. When you have an ink blot on a piece of paper, you fold it in half and it's mirrored. And psychologists or psychiatrists use it to evaluate people. And depends on what you see on those blots of paper. Right. So someone is already writes in the comments, I see. And I want to ask you, what do you see here besides the pipe, the orange, and the coats of paint? Nick?
Okay, so what's a flab of Bafana? I don't know what that means.
Well, Bafana means a hag, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So somebody else said a mother and child.
Right.
Okay, we got old woman with a candle. I see this as a scared cat. There's the tail and there's the legs. Another person said a white reindeer right here. Cool.
Right.
Somebody fell off. And Annette rides horses, or she used to ride horses. So somebody fell off a horse. So that's what she sees in here. A white moose. We also have a dog on the left, right here, I think. And let's see, an old woman, and creature on the left, child in its mouth, right here. So that's the mouth. Figure running on the right. And then we have a white reindeer. So
you see, as you can see, this is pretty fun. I mean, we have an abstract here. We have some shapes. We have some really uninspired material, a PVC pipe, like a rain gutter. And you see people as seeing stuff. I mean, are we crazy or what? And so,
maybe a little bit of both.
yeah. So this is my point, to not to stop to look at, so do not stop to look at the surface. Do not stop at the surface, to look deeper, to, you know, to get your subconscious to play as well, next, let's see some more pictures. So what do you see here, for instance?
I think I see a turtle.
A turtle, okay.
Someone saw a horse head. Actually, Joe says his ex-wife. But a wolf, a face looking down. How about another old woman, a head, a torn glove?
Right. So you
Oh,
see,
I see the face looking down. Yeah. So here's the eye, and here's the mouth, and here's the chin. Yeah. Turtle. Yep. Face, Coldmeister. There you go.
Okay, so you see here, I'm just going around with my camera and extension tubes mainly, and looking for, at this point, looking for details. These are really small details. I mean, really, really small, like a finger or less sometimes, and try to not to just to compose an image that is visually good and graphic and colorful and interesting, but also I want to take it to the next level. I want to find something that, you know, people can look at and see stuff. And for instance, what I saw here was like a face from one of those scary nights in the Lord of the Ring, the one that chases Frodo in when he puts the ring on. And And then I go about composing the picture. Obviously, I want to have a lot of stuff going on. I just want to have a shape. I just want to also want to have color. I want to have texture or detail, whatever I can. Next. So, you want to have a go with this one?
Let's see. Oh, actually, I have one bald eagle on a branch for this one, middle and
Okay.
the bottom. For this one, I actually see a face. Somebody kissing. Here we go.
Right. I use these photographs for an exposition, and I made it interactive. So the people who write what they saw in the picture and write on a piece of paper, and they put it in a little box. And kissing for this particular image, it came out a lot.
Yep. We have a Easter Island figure. We had an African sculpture of face.
Right.
We also have two men, one far away, one up close.
Okay. So let's go to the next one. This is more difficult. I want to see what you can see here.
Let's see if anybody comes up with anything.
Yeah.
Well, a Muppet screening. Here you go. Yeah, I was on the same track as we have a yellow lobster. We have a person in a blanket. Yep. Woman with a red bandana holding a baby. How about an African woman in a beautiful dress? Goldfish.
Right. So for instance, you see, this is pretty, I mean, this was pretty interesting to me because of the color, all the detail. And what I saw here was like a pink dragon, like in a Victorian style pink dragon with a hat. And going to the next picture, let's see if you have another one. Okay, so for instance, now I'm walking in Bologna under the porches, and I'm just going to, I have an appointment, and I notice this blotch of paint on the wall. And this was pretty interesting to me already. You can see it's just a little bit paint, a yellow paint, other colors on the wall, like someone who was trying to do a graffiti and just throw some paint on the wall. Go to the next one. Let's see what I did with that. So this is my picture. Okay, can you go back and see if you can find the detail in this one? It's the same subject here.
So that. Yep.
Right, this is really close, really small. Yeah,
It's in there.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm working on the side with the picture. Yeah, and for instance, I love the color, the blue, the red, and the yellow, and the white. And I also saw, if you go to the next picture, the blue one reminded me of an Egyptian style, like an Anubi figure, and like a servant, the figure on the right, for instance.
Yeah,
Let's see.
seahorse.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a lot of stuff here.
That's amazing. Just to point out again, so this picture here is basically right in through here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Diana sees a melting Pac-Man.
Right. So my point here is shapes, forms, colors, they can all suggest something. They can elicit emotion, memories, even ideas. I mean, that's what artists do in the end, no? And what I do when I go about composing an image, no matter what kind of image. I just go about composing like it was an abstract, like it was like I try to forget the content of the picture. I mean, I just focus in a way on shapes and color, on the visual, on the design aspect of the picture. And I try to be really aware of the what all these things suggest to me. I know it's going to be different for someone else. I mean, we're working here on different levels. Of course, one, as I said before, you have to work a lot. You have to try a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a part of the work that is really about making an image that is good visually, and then you can work on a deeper level on giving suggestions or working with the subconscious or the viewer in a way. I mean, it depends. Someone will see stuff like we are now. Someone will see just a little piece of paint, maybe some, you know. And the picture before, the one with the face, once the red figure. Okay, this one. In my exposition, someone wrote down like something like it's gonna take a lot of work to fix this door. I mean, someone saw just a piece of wood and some paint that's fallen apart. It depends on the person, but that's an idea of what you can do. I mean, you have to be aware of all the things that are in the picture beside the content. Okay, so next. So what do you see? So now we're back to my forks, and it's clear now, but also beside the fork, what do you see now? Let's see if anybody want to pitch in with some comment. A crown?
A candle, a crown, a candle, a candelabra. Fingerprints on handle.
Right. Right.
More candles. Saint Lucia crowned with red candles. Egyptian staff.
So, for instance, this is what I saw when I started working on this picture. And so go to the next one, Nick. Oh, this is the production shot. Go to the next one, then we'll go back. So, for instance, when I started working, I just had one light, which is a soft box with a roll of piece of papers over it to make the yellow. And the suggestion I got here, what the image told me, it was like, it reminded me of like an Egyptian coffin or precious object. And so I try to work on this. Obviously, I don't want to make something that looks like an Egyptian stuff exactly. I just want, to give a clue to the viewer, or to make an image that is interesting in a way graphically, but also can mean more, can communicate something else, and can be interpreted. So let's go back to the production shot. I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, so I have the fork here, which is resting on a piece of black paper. The paper it's inclined because it's just easier for me to work with the camera at that point. And the soft box is the one on the right. Yeah. So basically the fork is a metal object, and that means that when you're going to put a light toward it, it's just going to reflect it. It's not going to be lighted as it would be a piece of paper. It's almost like a mirror. So if one light holds the fork, I have to use the big light to make all the fork get colored as one. And the first light was the yellow one, which is the one we've seen. And then I have a blue softbox, which is the one below the camera, right? and go back so they can see in the picture. You see the blue now? It's coming from that light, right? Okay, go back to the production shot. And then I have the green dots are coming from the, well, it's not actually in the shot. It's like the gooseneck, the tall lamp. You can see just the base. Yeah, it's actually on top. It has a green gel on it, and it's bare, so it's gonna look small. It's gonna, yeah, and you can see the red thingy in the middle, right? It's the small flash lamp and a piece of red paper wrapped around it. And that I just moved it over from over the fork near the soft box on the right, upper, more higher, yeah, right, and moving toward the camera, right. And so go next. Okay, step 1, and then we have step 2 with the blue, and 3, and then step 4 with the red. You see, it's a 3-second exposure. So I could move my piece of red paper to color the top of the fork. So next image. So for instance, what do you see in this one? I mean, it's obviously a fork, but do you see anything else beside that?
Venus flytrap, a cage, salad tongs, eyes in the night.
Okay, so I mean, everyone is going to see
Elegant arm down.
But you see, we have here the shape of the fork, which is really different from how we see it usually. I'm actually working on a mirror here. So I have the fork and the reflection of it, which made really tricky light the picture and handle and yeah, take care of the background. And let's see the next image, should be the production shot. Okay, so these are, the one on the left is the last picture I took on my exploration session, if you can call it that. And when I got to that, I knew I had a picture. So here I have a fork laying on a mirror. I'm just shooting with my camera handheld, and just to get an idea and to keep track of my process. You can see the reflection of the camera in the one on the right, the bottom. Yeah, that's how close I am. And go ahead. And then I started working exactly and trying to see what I could do. Eventually, when I found this stuff, I just stopped and went to sleep because I knew I had a picture in there. And then I started again next day. Go ahead. And from my first session, these were the 2 versions I did. One was blue and orange. The other one was just changing the color, was changing the gel, red and yellow. And I thought the green and yellow was more promising because it was different from my other forks, and also I kind of liked the green. But you see, this is my starting point in a way. I have several problems here, which one of those is the depth of field, as you can see. I mean, you can see the top of the top of the tines, the prongs is sharp, but as you go up, it gets a little bit softer. And this is because I'm shooting with an extension tool, a small one, but still an extension tool, and that is going to cut my depth of field. So this is a problem to fix, and I'm not going to be able to sharpen it manually as I did before because it's too complex. So let's go ahead. This is the production shot, how I shot it. It's a small mirror, as you can see, and there's a camera on the tripod. And I have two lights. One is on the right, and it's lighting the side of the fork, and then I have a piece of whiteboard on the left that's filling in on the other side. The frame and the battery next to the fork is just here to block the light, yeah. And then to get the light underneath the fork, I figured out I had to have the light. I just couldn't point the light toward the fork. I just had to point it toward the part that was reflected in the mirror. This is why I have a torch behind my camera pointed at this red black cloth. So, right. So go back and show the picture once more. So you see the green is coming from it's the reflection of the light. Exactly. So let's go ahead. Next. Okay. Another shot, the same setup. Next. So this is a second attempt, which is much better. It still has some problems. Once for all, the light is coming more. I mean, at this point, I'm really symmetrical here, and I have lights coming from both sides. One side is stronger, also other stuff that I want to fix, but I fixed one of the biggest problems, which is the depth of field. And eventually I tried focus stacking the image with another software, which is called Helicon Focus, which surprisingly worked really well and was really fast to do the work. So it was an amazing discovery. And let's see, this was one session. Let's go to the next image. Should be the setup, which is a lot more, looks a lot more complicated, but not really. The only thing that changes is I have my light positioned in a different way because I want it reflected on the board on both sides, because I want both lights to be big. The problem is the light is going to reflect on the fork as well as a highlight, because the fork is basically acting like a disco ball. It just reflects all over the place. And so I devised, go to the next image. Yeah, as you can see, I used the bin filled with books and a piece of PVC and a piece of paper on top to block some of the reflection. And the cloth on top just to block some of the light that would get reflected on the ceiling and eventually end up on the fork. Next. So this is how I thought about my solution for putting the board in place where I wanted to. I mean, I didn't have a stand, so I devised one. I used a ladder resting on a chair and used some books to make the panel stand on it, and then another book to act as counterweight. Next. So you can see equipment doesn't really matter. What's important, getting the result. This is the next attempt. It's much better, more symmetrical, lights is better. By now I'm using a different setup, which I'm going to show you in a second. But another big problem I had with this picture is that while it's clearly symmetrical, the fork is not really perfectly symmetrical. I mean, you can see the reflection of the fork in the middle, the handle. It now looks as if it's in the center. It actually wasn't. I had to do some retouching on Photoshop eventually. But also you can see the two middle prongs of the fork, the part in between is not always as even on both sides. And so also I have problems working with lights because if I get too close, as I should be to get all the highlights on the border of the fork, they get in the picture because I have a mirror as a background. So this is tricky. Next image. So this is another attempt, and this I was pretty happy with, except my grain is kind of muted, and somehow my light wasn't at its best that day. It was maybe not full power, or didn't make the exposure long enough. And when I focus stack the image, I would get these black halos around the external prongs of the fork. You can hardly see them now, but I mean, I show you they're there. So know that now, up, go to the prongs on the side. No,
I'm missing it.
it's difficult to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's get to the next one. And another difficult part of this picture is this is what I see in the viewfinder, because this is my lens wide open f4, and I can't get everything in focus, not even close, because I'm working with an extension too. So it's really difficult to focus. It's really difficult to know if my depth of field is good. It's also difficult to compose the image because I'm never going to see exactly if my green light, for instance, is in the center, or if the handle is in the center, or if the highlights just the way I wanted to. And go to the next image. This is a picture from another shoot, but f22. This is not focused there. As you can see, it's sharp in the middle, but soft at both ends, the top and the bottom. And this is what I could see on my screen if I took a test shot. But I just couldn't, press my depth of field preview button because, as you can see, I'm shooting 20-second exposure here. So if you close your aperture, you just don't see a thing. The lights are not powerful enough to show the picture if you close it. So I had to take a lot of test shots, and you can see now, for instance, the handle is not centered, and that bugged me and took me a lot of time to eventually decide I had to fix it in Photoshop, but I could get everything else in place, so it's okay. Next, and this is my final picture. So you can see this is focus stacked, so it's about 20 images, focusing from the very closest point to infinity. I used all the focus and distance on my lens, yeah, because it was so close, literally a finger or two from the fork. So next image. This is the final setup. As you can see, it's quite different, and you can see I have two flashes with yellow gels on it. I just had to cut one in half because I didn't have to. They were the same. And go to the next image. It's just shot from the side. Okay, so you can see it. Instead of the big black whiteboard, I'm using two pieces of paper that are folded because I figured I didn't need all that much white, and just got in the way and ended up in the picture, so I could get closer, much closer. And the black paper at the bottom is just there to block light getting into the background. And I have a light on top behind the camera, which is making the green. And here I have a question. So here I have the flashes with a yellow gel on it. And then I have a flashlight with a yellow gel on it. So why is that I'm getting two different colors? Anyone can guess?
What were the two colors? You have yellow here.
Yeah.
You have yellow here?
Yeah, it's the same. And
okay.
I have yellow on the flashlight.
Do you have blue up here?
I have yellow and a little blue, but also yellow mainly.
Yeah, because the yellow and the blue makes green.
Yeah, but imagine the blue isn't there. It just looks blue.
Okay.
It's just a yellow gel. But you're close to the solution.
Yellow on the black created the green?
No?
No. Anybody else got an idea?
So the solution is no, it's not reflection. The solution is my white balance is set to,
Oh.
well, it's set to 5500 to,
Cloudy?
no, to the flash setting.
Okay.
And so the yellow coming from the flash is going to look yellow, but
Yeah.
the flashlight on top, it's a lot cooler. So if I don't have a gel on it, it's going to look blue. And then if you put blue and yellow together, you get green.
Right.
So eventually, I did also a yellow gel because I wanted to make the green cooler, a little bit cooler, and that's it.
So that goes back to the LED question, because the LED will be more bluish, right? So you put the yellow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you can make the LED warmer. I mean, depends on the specific light you're using. So next image. So this is 3 shots from an exploration session. I'm going to call it that. And I just showed it to my girlfriend, for instance, the night. I said, because it's good to have an opinion from someone else you can trust, you can interpret. And I said, what do you like best? What's interesting to you? And she said the first 2 because they're more graphical. You see a lot more of the shapes, and I think she was right. And so I decided to work on that. And next day I started from, go to the next image, please. Okay, so I started working on the second one, which was more promising. And I'm really close to the fork here to get this triangular black shape. And I'm trying stuff here. I'm trying to make it graphical. I'm trying to make it, you see, I'm working in black and white here because often colors comes into play later. Sometimes you have to put, to go one step at a time. Next image. So you see, I'm even trying to go down with dispersion, so I see if regular gray works, and pointing the light at it, making another shape. Next. And I'm starting trying to introduce color. As you see, another change in the background, making shade on one part of the background. Next. And finally, I decided to use you've probably noticed it before, a piece of round paper, origami paper, red, put in the corner of the picture, and then I just stabbed it with a fork. You can see there's a little bit black, right, attached to the fork, and that is because otherwise I would get a reflection of the red of the background in the fork. Next image, and this is one of the final shots. Actually, I focus stacked this. I shot 3 exposures at different, focusing at different distances because it's really a lot of depth of field. And well, since I had so success with the other picture with the focus stacking, I decided to try it again here and go to the next one. This is the final picture. And as you see, this is focus stacked, and if you want to talk about post-production, what I did here was just a little bit of retouch in the point where the prongs stab the background over there. If you look at the picture before, you see it gets a little bit darker in some point. So I just took care of that. It's a little detail, but it matters. And also you see the highlight on the left of the fork. Yeah, just didn't have it there. It's going to be, I don't know if impossible, possibly a lot more complicated to get it like that. So I took care of that and just sharpened the top part of the triangular shape, because it was so close to the camera, just it was just impossible to focus on it. So let's see the production shot. So as you can see, I'm using a soft box with a yellow piece of paper, because I don't have a gel that big to cover the bulb, so I had to improvise. And I have a background which is a white piece of paper. It's going to turn yellow with the light, and you can see the red piece of paper. And you see in the photograph on the right that I'm really, really close to the fork. And now the camera is off, actually, so the lens is not extended, so it's actually resting on the lens, the top of the fork. So that's how close I was. So next. Right. I'm going to show you now I think we're going to make it the last part, this one. One shot from start to finish. So next. So for instance, my idea, my inspiration for this picture, this is not a picture, for instance, it's just the beginning, was to make a picture that was like a black and white picture. And I was inspired by actually a picture by Joe Berman, and I saw it on his blog. It was like a post on playing with food, and I thought it was really beautiful, and I loved the use of the black and white, the simplicity of it. And so why don't I do a shot of a fork just using black and white? So this is my starting point. I played around with the fork and I chose one of the 6 fork I had in the house, and with my flashlight, eventually I found this shape that I could do with the background, with the shadow, which is really long, especially in the front part. Those long lines of the prong of the fork, prongs of the fork. So next image. And here I'm trying to establish more or less how much of the fork I'm going to get in the shot. So I tried cropping the shadow before. Now I'm trying to get in all of it next. And eventually I decide this is better. And so I have a flashlight, a simple flashlight, which had a magnet on the back. So I just attached it to the radiator, which was metal. And I have the fork on a piece of paper on the table. And I found the angle that would get me the reflection, that kind of reflection you can see in the, I don't know if you can point it, Nick, in the tines of the fork. Yeah, and the other reflection that I liked. Okay. I can also see some detail in the back of the fork a little bit. Yeah, right. So next image. So now I have my base shot, my main interest, if you want. And I'm trying to, but you see the picture's kind of empty now. So I'm trying to fill it in a way, or complete it, probably is best word. So now I'm using probably a piece of metal or mirror to reflect some of the light back into the shot. And next, and didn't like that. I tried putting a glass on one side to make a shadow. I was pretty familiar with that by the time. And you see, but you see, by making the shadow, I make a big line. I also make a big shape. It's like a trapeze, and I make a triangle in the corner. But still, the picture is pretty imbalanced now, and I'm still working on just one half of the picture for the moment. Next. So I start working I always try to find a good balance in a picture. It's really important, and you have to look at it at all the parts that make the picture. So now I'm using another glass to make that small darker triangle in the top right corner, as you can see, and right. And that is an additional shape. It's something interesting in a picture. And you can also see I have a dark one on one side and a clear one on the other side, if you want. Next. So now I try to work on the bottom part, which is still empty, and I just use a piece of black paper to cover the lens and make another triangle over there. That doesn't really look really good to me. So next, taking it out, and we're like before. So next image. So now I get rid of the shadow on the left and I try putting in, I think it's a small plate, or maybe, yeah, it should be like a small plate or a coffee cup, maybe. It should be a plate, I think. And next image. And then I change what I did on the right part of the image. I'm probably using simply glass here. Not really sure, because as you've seen, I try a bunch of stuff, so eventually I'll forget something. Next. And by now I also added, I think, a coffee cup, a small coffee cup on the left, which is the shadow you see on the left of the fork, and which has a hole, which is the handle. And still the same thing happening on the other side. Next. So now I decided to work more on the right side. Next. I probably rotated the glass to get a different shadow, because if you rotate it, depends on how the glass is, it's going to get you a different shadow. Next. And eventually I stumble upon making the shadow in a way that looks like it's cutting the picture in half. Well, not exactly in half, like in one bigger part and one smaller part. It's, you know, it's like parallel to the borders of the frame, to the frame. And this I like because it's really interesting. It's more balanced in the whole of it. And also remember, I'm working on black and white, so you have black and white. I mean, they're all grays actually, but next. So now I decide to add some interest in the bottom part of the picture, and I do that by placing a spoon inside the glass, and that makes that little shadow, like a line that's in the bottom right. And white's only half of it. I don't know, probably because, you know, the spoon is not parallel to the glass, it's like oblique. So next, I work on that. You see I'm moving a little bit to find the right spot, the right balance, the right equilibrium. And next, you see, working with the spoon, I'm making that shadow in the right part. It's like broken in two. I have one part in the bottom. I don't know, Nick, if you can point it out to the people. Okay, one is that, and one is the other one on top, which is going over the fork. Yeah, I think it's the spoon. It just makes this shadow in two parts, and I'm losing a bit of the end of the shadow of the fork right there. I mean, let's go to the next picture. Okay, so to get it back, or to get back the right, yeah, I think I use the mirror, a small mirror, to bring back some light in it. And you see, I'm also modifying that shadow, also making like a triangular shape with that. That's like pointing to the fork. Next image. Can you go back a second? Okay. So here, okay, yeah, right. Next. Okay, so here I'm moving the light, and you see I'm getting a lot more shadow in the corner, the bottom corner. But I think I'm losing some shining on the fork itself, on the tips of the fork. Go to the next one. See if we. Okay, yeah, right. Can you see the reflection, the highlight over there? Right. So I just have to find the right position, and from that, let's go to the final image, which is this one. As you see, I've lightened up the exposure a bit and put a gradient on the bottom part to reduce the fallout of the light, and basically that's it. But you see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I mean, we have the fork and the shadow, which was our main interest, beginning, if you want, and then we have a lot of shapes, a lot of even a different kind of shadows, different kind of grays, of tones. We have the texture of the background, the highlights on the fork, the triangle of lines. It's a lot of different parts that are making the picture, but they all work together as a whole. And as Nick said before, I was a composer before. I mean, I was studying as a composer before going into graphic and web design, eventually in photography. And the way I think of it is like writing some music. I mean, there are several instruments that are going to make most of the music we hear, we listen to. Even if it's a quartet, we have 4 instruments. Each one's playing a different part, or sometimes they're playing something similar together, but they all make a part, and they all together work to make the piece, the whole, if you want. And that's how I see it. Next. Okay. This last part is going to be how I take all the stuff I've been talking about for the past 2.5 hours. Sorry about that, and use it when I'm outside working, you know, in the real world in a way, street shooting, for example. So let's go to the first picture.
By the way, nothing to be sorry about. Yeah, so.
So this I took at a kite festival, and I was trying to find something that was, you know, the way I work. I always thought I need to find something that it is interesting to me, that really gets me excited about. And from that, I start working and trying to make it into a picture. But I need something to kindle that little fire to get me started. And for instance, I saw these kites, the 2 big one in the foreground, which are rotating, and it was interesting to me. So I started working on a composition. I was ducking on the ground with my camera and trying to find a nice composition with the other kites in the sky, and also try to find an angle that would, you know, possibly backlight them, because it's going to make the color look a lot more interesting, since the kites are made of a fabric that is sort of translucent. Is that the right word? I mean, and tried to find the lowest possible shutter speed so they could get some movement in it. And if you look at the data at the bottom, you see I'm shooting ISO 50. So it's the lowest I could get at f22, even if I didn't have to close the aperture so much. And I'm using a 35 fixed millimeter lens, a prime lens. And still I have 1/80th of a second. I mean, if I could, I would have taken it down to 1/3 probably, or at least I would have tried to see how it would look, the movement. And then I took my shot of that, but still, it just wasn't enough for me. I just wondered if we could get some more interest, some more life in it. And eventually some people got in the picture, and I was adjusting my composition so I could get the people inside, especially I want to get the little girl, which is on the shoulders of his dad, and trying to reach like, for a kite or something. And yeah, that's about it. So first interest, then composed the shot, and eventually waited until I could get all I wanted into the shot. Next. Okay, so this is a shot taken on a location where I had shot before. I mean, it's near the sea, or see the beach. And I like the design of this scene here. The silhouette of the tree, or at least the lines, the making out the tree, the lines in the other part of the picture, the stripes of color in the road, the walkway, the wall, the sand, and the sea and the sky. They're all stripes of different colors, and all the poles are making shapes. So I already have some picture of it in a overcast light, so more flat, but still interesting. But then I happened to be there, and I had some sunlight and a shadow coming from a building behind my back. And then I composed my shot, and I had that piece of light in the right was going to be the point where people would look, most likely. And I just stood there and waited until somebody passed, and I shot a bunch of people, and eventually there was these guys with a dog on a leash, and I always try to get the dog without the people, because we're in the winter season now, but it's not really interesting. I don't really like as much as people wear in the winter. I think the clothes tend to be a lot more boring and well, all the same. So getting the dog is always going to be, the same in winter and in summer. So it's a good subject. And I try to get the dog alone with the leash, and then I probably shot the persons as well, because you never know. But cutting off the people, it's actually better here, because even if you don't see them, you see the dog, you see the leash, they're gonna make you think what is beyond the edge of the frame, right? They're gonna imply content in the picture. So here we have several layers of interest: the graphic part, the light, and I mean, this is a picture of a dog, if you think about it, but it's not only a picture of a dog. I mean, only the scene only can be interesting, maybe not as strong. You have several parts again. Next one. So this one, I was taking a walk with my girlfriend, and I saw the yellow wall, and the window, and I really love color, as you probably noticed. And I tried taking a picture of just the wall and the window, and we had that thing on the top, which is to scare the pigeons from sitting on the wires and making a mess. So in this instance, I started a picture, but it just didn't do it for me. I wasn't interested enough. So we were there taking pictures. So I said, just stand there, pretend you're taking a picture of something up. I made a stand there with a camera, and I just worked on getting just the hand in the camera, because you can see there's a pattern. So you don't need to see the full the third person. I mean, it's also going to be really convenient because, you know, I can use the same model over and over again. You never know. And this time, I made the interest. I mean, I had to think what could be the last part to complete the image, for instance. As before, I would just waited for the dog to come to the picture. Because sometimes you have to wait a lot and maybe you never get lucky. So next. So this is another example. It wasn't a guy that caught my attention. Actually, I shot a bunch of people here, but it was the slides, which are the colored things on top and the corners, which are on top of those little boats that we use in the sea in the summer. You can just paddle. And I had a 28 to 300 with me, and I tried to find a way to make something interesting from the colors. So eventually I find this frame making shapes, triangles with the yellow and the red. Also the ladder is making shapes. And we have also the blue, the sky, the yellow, the works with the other colors. And then I had this spot on the right for someone to be in picture. And I was lucky enough that a few people went there by their own wheel and took several pictures, and this one is the one I kept. Next. So, okay, so this one is actually one of my favorite images because it's really graphic. It's really a lot about shapes, but also you can see you can find shapes on positive space, which is like the white part, the marble over here, the shape in the hole where the person is standing. This is a bridge. It's actually a pretty famous bridge. It's part of 3 bridges. I just decided to select a piece of it. And you have a shape in the spotted light with the boat on the right, like a circular shape. Exactly, Patrick. Yeah, it's Komakyo. And you also have a shape in the blue on the top. Right. Okay. So, for instance, I put a person there, and I made it walk back and forth a few times, got in full silhouette or in partial silhouette, which is this one. I also made it walk up and down the stairs, probably. I don't remember. And this one is the one I like the best because I think it was more interesting than just a silhouette. And it doesn't show the person, so who she is. It's more like it could be, it's just a woman. So it's really more universal in a way. Next image. So this picture here for me, it's about perseverance, because we have this air show near where I live on the seaside once a year, and I just wanted to go and photograph the acrobatic team, the Italian acrobatic team, which is the one you see in the picture, which performs at the end of the show. Probably have one new house as well, different colors. And I went there and started, and everybody shoots with a telephoto, this kind of picture. But as you can see, I shot with a 12 or 18 millimeter, so pretty wide. And what I did is I went there at the start of the show. There were a lot of planes and choppers and vehicles performing and flying by, and I just walked a whole lot, all the beach, trying to find an idea for a picture of eventually the acrobatic team. with the color stripes. And I just couldn't get anything good, anything interesting. And eventually it was almost time, it was almost the time they performed. And I was coming back by then to where I started and saw the flag and say, okay, this is perfect, let's try it. But you know, the weather by then was getting really awful. It was cloudy, it was starting to rain. So in the end, I just didn't get anything because it was just terrible. So by there, I had an idea. So I decided to try again the next year or a couple of years later when I could. And by then, I just went there and I knew what I wanted to do, which is to have a flag with the colors of the Italian flag and the colors of the Italian flag in the stripes with the plane. I just had to find the best flag there was. And it took me a while, but eventually I found one and I stopped there. There were people sunbathing there, and one was actually, there was one guy who was really into planes, like he's playing the other things while we were waiting, and I was shooting all the planes that came before this one, and eventually it was time for the acrobatic team to perform, and I managed to get a good shot. I mean, Nick, what would you do? What do you think you could do better here?
What could you do better here?
Right.
The you know, the only minor thing is if the flag was maybe unfurled a little bit more.
Right.
But
Exactly.
other than that, I don't see anything else. Or in one of the contrails, you take the contrail out, you know, that one here. But
Mhm.
but yeah, if the flag had a little bit more wind.
Exactly. But you see, I can't walk here on a tripod and have my shot set because I don't know where they're gonna fly. So I have to be really, really fast to work here. And obviously, I tried a lot of shot before, but I mean, I need to get them in a particular place, control the frame, and yeah, the flag would be like a little more expanded, would be better. But it's only so much you can get unless you have a guy, you know, standing on the ladder on top, blowing the flag all the time. You can't control the wind.
Yeah, but just being able to get the smoke to crisscross with the flag is
Yeah,
amazing. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so
You gotta be satisfied at some point.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So there's always room for improvement. I mean, next. So
That's actually what I tell my students, right? And that's the way Joe works.
right. So this picture I picked because I wanted to show that you can find interest anywhere. I mean, you see in the bottom, I'm in Sicily here on the rooftop of on a terrace, and the first shot I took was the landscape with the building lighted. Then I noticed this paw and fabric and the gazebo that wasn't in the place I was standing there in the terrace, and I decided to use it to, well, break up the image to add some interest to the otherwise classic landscape shot you can get. I mean, it's just a regular pole, nothing fancy, and some, I don't know what you call it, it's called fabric and ropes, but they make triangles, they make shapes. I mean, it's definitely a different picture from the one you've seen before. And it doesn't take anything fancy to make it. Just to be aware of what you have around and being able to see and use it. So next. Okay, so for instance, here I noticed the guy was making this big white puffs of smoke. And there were really big puffs of smoke, so it caught my interest. I wanted if I could take a picture with that, and I just walked around and explored until I could find a composition that would include him, make it a subject, but also not just be about him alone. So this picture, I mean, he's the subject in a way, but this picture has a lot of shapes, a lot of interest in pretty mundane stuff. I mean, there's a work in progress here. They're making the stairs, and well, you need to be aware and look everywhere. You never know what you can find. Next. So, okay. So just this picture, in a way, because sometimes you shoot and get a picture and you're satisfied with that, but it's always good to try everything you can. As we've seen before with the beginning of the folk project, was in the kitchen, I just shot everything. And here I wanted to take a shot of the Colosseum, was in this spot, it was like a little square where people were all taking selfies and pictures, and there I was taking a picture of them, and I took a picture of, I think, everyone I could. Eventually, I chose the one that was best representing what I wanted. Okay, so, and I did this in, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, because as you see, it's dusk, it doesn't last that long. So, really work it, really work it. Next. Okay, so this picture, I was to say, you don't have to go places to find good pictures. This I shot from my bedroom window. I had this scene before my eyes for years and years and years before I could notice it. Obviously, I had the orange wall and the window, which was nice, but didn't make the picture for me. But eventually, I was in a class at the Brian Peterson School of Photography, and the assignment was freezing action. And I thought of all kinds of things I could do. We're thinking I'm going to go to shoot dolphins at the, I don't know what to call it, the place where the dolphins perform. And eventually I noticed the swifts that in the summer just fly here in the road, in between the building and the sky at a particular hour. And I thought, why not shoot that? And I tried to get a swift inside my frame. And eventually I tried to get a shadow of a swift in my frame, which is pretty darn difficult, because they fly really fast. It's hard to, I had a camera with a telephoto lens on it, on one of those flimsy plastic tripods, because it's what I had, could afford back then. And so it wasn't that stable, and I didn't have a cable release, so I had just a remote one, which wasn't as fast. So it took a lot of tries and errors, but eventually got it. And you know what? I got the picture, and the day after that, I still want to work on it again. This was better than anything else I got, but you never know. Next. So
I want to go back. I want to go back to Artesia. Those cannolis on the right-hand side picture were the best cannolis I've ever had in my life.
So the bottom line here, the reason I chose these pictures for, is panic is good. Here I was in Sicily with on a workshop with Joe Berman, and it was just me, him, and another producer, a Sicilian one, and we were in Catania, the picture on the left, on the main square in front of the cathedral, and there was this guy playing the accordion, and Joe just kind of grabbed me and walked over him and gave them a few euros and said, Filippo, just take a portrait of him. And I was like frantic, and I panicked because I didn't shoot a lot of portraits, especially back then. And I said, what the, and I just tried to, to get a shot, basically. And I worked like crazy. I was scared the whole time, and yeah, eventually I got this picture I'm really happy with. And he gets him, gets what he's doing, he gets the place we're at. It shows a lot of stuff. And the same thing happened with the picture on the right. We were just walking in Ortiza, and he noticed this girl in the cannoli shop and said, Filippo, just ask her if you could take a picture of him, of her. So I was again kind of panicking and asked her and tried to work on my picture as fast as I could, because obviously she was there to work, not to model for us, and I didn't want to waste their time. But when you're pressured to work in really short frame of time, sometimes this is good because it's gonna show you what you can actually do. It's like people like Marines or people in the military, really, even firefighters, rely a lot on their training. It's really important because when you don't have time to think, it determines what you're going to do. So when you kind of in the same situation, and I realized that taking a picture is not the same, but it's not as dangerous. But in a way, you're pressured for time. You just want to get a picture whenever the time. You want to waste the time of all the people that are modeling for you or whatever. The light maybe is changing fast. It's going to show, I think, where you're at. So, next picture. Okay, so I said it before, equipment, gear is never a limit to creativity. For instance, here I just had an idea when I set out, was to take a picture of something against a dark sky, and it was overcast, but I've seen this technique that you could darken the sky by making the exposure dark and using a flash to fill in the subject. So this is what I did. But you see, I only had one camera. I didn't have a flash beside the pop-up flash on the camera. And eventually I stopped on the side of the road where this pop-ups were, and cars were passing by and moving the flowers a lot. And I was there working in the dirt and trying to get an idea of the shot I wanted to take, and trying with the flash on. But since I had my wide angle lens on, the flash light coming from the pop-up flash would make a shadow on the subject because the lens is big and takes all the stuff. So what I thought was to turn the camera upside down, so the flash is coming from below, and since I'm aiming my camera up, this is not making the same problem of the shadow before. And obviously it's a lot more challenging to shoot this way, and it's a lot of trial and error also. But you see, if you want, you can always find a solution to do what you need, no matter what the gear you have. Next. Okay, so we've seen a lot of stuff that was, pretty brainy and creative and making shapes out of nothing. And I chose this picture to say that sometimes you don't have to be clever. Sometimes all you need to do is not to screw up. I mean, when you get such fantastic light as this, and I was like trying to figure out a clever way to make a picture, and here we are on a pier, and there's people passing by, and eventually I don't have an idea, and this woman on the scooter with the kid, and then this kid following, that are coming over me. So I just rushed as close as I could get and say, okay, just try not to screw up and get what you see. Because sometimes it's powerful enough. You don't need to add anything to that. So we have the last picture next. This is, you probably heard from a lot of people, and it is that you always have to have your camera with you, because otherwise you don't get this stuff. I mean, we were walking, getting ice cream, and how often does it happen to see a dog inside a photo booth? I mean, it can be funny. But if you don't have your camera with you, how are you going to get it? You can't plan your shoot, or your shoot. I mean, you can plan some of the spontaneous stuff you never get if you're ready to get it. And this is a wrap. So
Filippo went over a ton of material. Thank you so much, Filippo. Anybody have any last minute questions? Margaret says, grazie. And Joe says, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Lots of great comments for you. I don't see any questions yet.
right.
Maybe they're all questioned out. But
Well, if you have a question later, you just go to my website. There's a contact form. You just send me an email. I'll get back to you if you want.
yeah.
And thanks for you all for being here.
Yes, thank you. So everybody, thank you for attending. And folks who couldn't hang on but are watching the video, thank you for spending the time that you spent with us. And if you couldn't make it, you still can see the video. Thank you very much. Filippo, really appreciate all the wonderful pictures and all your insights. There was a ton of inspirational work there and a ton of insights, and really it was wonderful. So thank you for spending the time.
Thank you for having me here and sharing my experience with you and all these people we have here.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.